Well, greetings. Today, as we continue making our way through the book of Esther, I would like to consider the topic of pride's blinding effects. Now, this current series is entitled For Such a Time as This, and the scripture we're going to be considering today has been drawn from Esther chapter 5, verses 9b, the second part of verse 9, down through the end of the chapter, verse 14. As we are reading the text, it's interesting to me to note how the plot is thickening more and more along the way. Join me now as we read together. But when Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate, and Mordecai didn't rise or tremble in fear at his presence, Haman was filled with rage toward Mordecai. Yet Haman controlled himself and he went home. He sent for his friends and his wife Zeresh to join him. Then Haman described for them his glorious wealth and his many sons. He told them all how the king had honored him and promoted him in rank over the other officials and the royal staff. What's more, Haman added, Queen Esther invited no one but me to join the king at the banquet she had prepared. I'm invited again tomorrow to join her with the king. Still, none of this satisfies me since I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate all the time. His wife Zeresh and all his friends told him, have them build a gallows 75 feet high. Ask the king in the morning to hang Mordecai on it. Then go to the banquet with the king and enjoy yourself. The advice pleased Haman, so he had the gallows constructed. If there's one thing we have come to recognize in this man Haman, and perhaps his greatest character flaw, is his overwhelming, life-controlling ego. Pride was the driving force behind everything that Haman stood for. Of course, we all know how destructive pride can be if left unchecked in our lives. In fact, in Proverbs 16:8, we are warned that pride comes before destruction and an arrogant spirit before a fall. Well, we are witnessing this fall and this destruction building in Haman's life and in his actions. In today's passage, the point of view in the narrative suddenly begins to change direction. We find ourselves viewing life through Haman's eyes, and it's evident that his mind isn't necessarily a particularly pleasant place to be. As we saw in our last study, Haman had left Esther's first banquet, and he was full of joy, and he was in good spirits. But as he arrived at the king's gate, his eyes immediately fell upon Mordecai. Well, once again, as was common, Mordecai refused to show him any honor or respect, causing Haman's heart to be filled with rage. What an abrupt and drastic shift of mood we see. When Haman arrived at his home, he gathered an audience together. Then he launched into this prideful rant, boasting about his wealth, his progeny, and the honors he had received from the king. Ironically, the pinnacle, the very high point of his tirade was Queen Esther's invitation to her banquets. But then he declared that he could not find total satisfaction as long as Mordecai the Jew was continuing to sit at the king's gate. Well, to deal with his anger, Haman's wife and his friends advised him to take revenge upon Mordecai for his failure to offer up the honor and respect that Haman felt he should be given. Their advice included having a 75-foot high gallows constructed, followed by having Mordecai hanged upon it. As we're beginning to see, Haman's extreme pride was only matched by his overt foolishness. Unfortunately, these character flaws often go hand in hand. Pride can drive people to do dastardly deeds. Perhaps you are having some struggles in your own heart and life with arrogance. I encourage you to take time to examine your own heart. And as you're doing so, ask God to reveal your own life's areas of conceit or self-absorption. Consider possible situations that may trigger these traits within you and how you can change that from taking place. How do you allow other people to push your buttons or poke your pride? Haman's story that we are following offers a sobering reminder of the gravity of this sin of pride. Let me remind you once again about that warning that we found in Proverbs 16:18. Pride comes before destruction, and an arrogant spirit before a fall. Pride blinds those who allow it to control them. Folks, let me assure that we are all guilty of pride to some degree. It's simply a part of the fallen human nature. It was that thing that drove Satan from the presence of God. But we can rejoice in the redemptive power of Christ's sacrifice that has set us free from the guilt of sin and death. Until next time.